Hi, welcome back to another episode of the You Can Do It channel with Chris and Annie. I'm Annie, and today I'm going to give you a quick tutorial of how to stain your next wood project. There's a little trick to it as well. So first we're going to start off, obviously you need to sand your project. If it is a hardwood such as maple, oak, cherry, those kind of woods, you can start off with an 80 grit to knock down any of those burrs on the surface of the wood. If it's a softwood project, you're going to want to start off with a 120 grit. In any case, you're going to always move to this 120 grit. 120 is really all you need in order to stain your wood project. But if it's going to be like a furniture grade and you want that really silky smooth surface, you're going to want to then finish off with a 220 grit to really close down the grain and the pores of that wood and give it a really smooth feel. After you're done sanding, you then go over your project with wood filler. Some might say, wait a second, shouldn't wood filler go in before I sand? Actually, no. If you put wood filler in before you sand, you'll probably most likely end up pulling it right back out, and then you're gonna end up having to do it a second time. So major sanding first, wood filler next. Since we are staining it, make sure your wood filler says stainable or it will show through. It will not grab any of this stain and it will look really not attractive. So make sure it says stainable. Then you go, if I finished with my 120, I then go over that wood filler with the 120. If I finished with the 220, I go over that wood filler with the 220. So it all still has that same feel to it. After you're done sanding, you finish that part of the project off with microfiber cloth, pulling off all of that dust. You want to make sure there's no dust on your project before you apply the stain. Here is the woodworker's trick. You're going to want to take a water bottle filled with water and mist the wood before you apply the stain. And I said mist it, not soak it, mist it. The trick to that is, the woodworker's trick is that by misting it, you've opened that grain or those pores back up on the wood so that they can soak in the stain. If you do not do that step, the stain just sits on the surface. So that trick is to mist your wood and let it sit for about 15-20 minutes just to open up those pores, then move to the stain. You can apply stain one of two ways. Throwaway paintbrush or a rag. I like using a rag just so I control how much stain goes on that project and I can really dig that stain right into the wood. When you apply the stain, always go with the grain of the wood, never against it. If you go against the grain of the wood, then what ends up having is a blotchy appearance to your wood. So make sure that when you stain it, you're always going with it. There's two different kinds of stain. These are oil-based. They're all oil-based here. But this is just stain. This is an all-in-one. All-in-one sounds really easy, get it all done in one. But if you're not an expert at staining, I don't suggest this for a couple reasons. This already has the polyurethane built in, which means I don't have a choice. I have to use a paintbrush. You would not use this paintbrush. You would use a paintbrush such as a Purdy brand paintbrush, really nice. But if you're not new to a wood project staining, this polyurethane will get tricky in the fact that when you use your paintbrush, you have to make sure you maintain a 45-degree angle, keep the strokes in one direction with the grain of the wood, or you'll end up with a really blotchy end product, and you'll end up with bubbles from that polyurethane. So if you're new, do not do this all in one. Sounds easy, it's not. This, you can make a mess and your project still looks beautiful like a pro. So when you are staining, you're going to apply again in the same direction of the wood. Make sure you pick out the stain that's right for your project and right for the wood species. You might end up having to go a little lighter or a little darker with your stain depending on your species. This is oak. It has a really close, tight grain. It does not soak up the stain like a pine would. A pine has a really loose grain, or the rings are far apart. It's got a lot of sponge to it. It soaks up the stain. So again, same exact stain. I use special walnut on both. This ended up with a red undertone. This has a yellow undertone. So different species of wood will take these stains differently. So you might want to test your wood before you go and stain the entire project. Always make sure you wear gloves. If you don't, you will have this stain on your hands for about a week. Been there, done that. Wasn't a good thing. Then to finish off that project, I always go with this finishing wax. I like it because it gives a matte to a satin finish. Plus, I can be messy with it, just like I can with the plain old oil-based stain, and it will still look beautiful. To apply a wax like this, you are again just going to take a rag, dip it in the wax, rub on your project the same way that the grain is going, wait about 15 to 20 minutes, and then go back over it. With something like this, if you just give it a couple wipes off, you're going to end up with like a matte finish. If you kind of rub it, it'll end up with a more of a satin finish. So again, you can go satin or matte to satin, depending on how much rubbing you do. If you're going for that semi-gloss to high gloss finish, you will have to use a polyurethane on that. And again, really nice paintbrush, not something that's a throwaway. You're gonna want a really good quality paintbrush. You're gonna wanna keep it at that 45. You're going to wanna go with the grain of the wood, and you will have to wait for it to dry in between coats. So I hope this little tutorial here helped you on your next wood project. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join. Hit that little bell, and we'll see you on the next episode of the You Can Do It channel with Chris and Annie.